Yeah, MoCCA 2024. What an experience.
Fantastic.
What'd you think of it?
It was great. I hadn't been in probably 3 or 4 years, and I hadn't tabled there in a very long time. Because MoCCA kind of commits the cardinal sin to me of like both charging a high price for table and charging admission at the door.
Yes,
like I kind of like if the table price is high, I kind of forgive it if they let people in for free. But if you're going to charge people to get in and charge people a premium and charge artists to get into the after party, although I didn't go to the after party, so I don't know if they did that or not.
They did charge people at the after party. They charged the people who had already paid the tabling fee a whopping $550.
Outrageous.
They charged those same people $10 to get into the after party.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, nobody I knew went because everybody was so tired.
Yeah.
I think if you come in from out of state, maybe you go to the after party because it's like the festivities.
Yeah.
But, you know, I agree. I think the table fee is very expensive. However, it's actually cheaper if you live in New York because then you don't have to pay for hotel or plane.
Yeah.
Like, when I went to CXC and tabled, I spent plane, hotel.
For sure.
You know, by the end of it,
TCAF, and like then you get hit on the exchange rate and everything.
Well, it hits in our favor.
If you're paying attention. If you're like me and you charge the same price because you're a math moron.
right. You mean charging at the table. Yeah.
It's like I'm a number idiot, so like I always forget to change the price of the comics. And also just like it seems outrageous to be like, this comic's not $5.
It's more for you.
$10.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, fuck that.
Not you. It's more for you.
Because I'm from America.
Oh, God. But, you know...
Yeah.
Well, to your point, I think the tabling fee matters because people from Canada can't come in because they're like, dude, I'm going, try doing it with Canadian money.
Yeah.
Mursky was saying, he's like, it's like using play money.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm losing twice as much. And
but
I'm like, you're right.
You also get to buy stuff for super cheap. So like your cost, you know, buying books at the show feels free because like you're selling books. Yeah. It's like you're like trading almost. It's like a barter system, which is cool.
I didn't buy as many books this year as I would normally, but just because I had a backpack full of my own books and I'm tired of carrying things around.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
But these are the books that I did get. I got some of these, and these are some of yours, right?
Yeah. Well, the other nice thing about the 2-day show is you can buy stuff, take it home, and leave it at home. You don't have you don't like at TCAF.
It just
I had all my
builds.
shit. And my suitcase was like about to explode on the way home. But yeah, so I got a bunch of stuff, traded for a bunch of stuff. Sometimes people drop some stuff off, like just to say what's up. I always try to give them stuff in return.
Absolutely.
Sometimes they say no. Sometimes they say like, no, man, just take it. Whatever.
Yeah, I got a trade. Kevin came by the table, and
I've never met.
Yeah, we just met for the first time, and I gave Kevin a comic, and he gave me Fielder #1 here.
Nice.
Which is pretty cool, actually. It's some short stories, and it follows a couple of the different characters. Bona is this kind of like barbarian character. There's dinosaurs, and then there's Glenn Ganges, who is the scientist. So there's like a scientific component and a barbarian component, and then it goes through different phases of these characters' lives. I really love this cartooning. I mean, it has like some of that like European kind of feel to it, like almost Tintin-esque, but then in the back there's this story about, this is really great, and this is a very Harriman kind of face to me, but I just love it. I mean, look at the difference between the Bona stories and then this Glenn Ganges revering, you know, now he's older and he's talking about cartooning. This I really like because it's almost autobio, but it's done through a fictional character, and this is all about this character at the advent of Photoshop when it first comes on the scene, revising all his work and figuring out how to do it, and then just getting lost in the specifics of hair. Like, how do I make the best possible hair? And what I like about...
We should do an episode on hair.
What I like about this...
Hair.
Yeah, totally. What I like about this is that it gets so in-depth on the hair, and that's the kind of compulsion of the cartoonist, where you just like, you absolutely zoom in on one thing and you're completely obsessed by it.
Yeah.
And to the detriment of your life, as this character's life like falls apart, he's like, well, my third wife, you know, and he's like, it didn't really sell that well, and my marriage fell apart. So that's where
that hair, damn.
Yeah, that's
coming
where
together.
That's where the fictional element comes in, but you can really see the cartooning like shine in this story.
Yeah.
And I just love it. What a great book.
These books always feel super jam-packed. His books always feel like you're going to get your money's worth when you pick up a Kevin.
There's so much going on. You know, I wondered if he as a kid, I wonder, there was this comic called in the back of Boys Life magazine, which was a Boy Scout magazine.
Okay.
In the back, there was this comic strip that ran forever, and those types of magazines from that era, like the early 90s or mid 90s, had all this stuff going on, like activities like it had like a fold your toy and like make a thing and cut it out, and so that's what I was feeling when I read this, was like the old for kids magazines back in the day.
That was the highlights and
like
Ranger Rick.
Exactly. Like there was always a million things to do, and it was jam packed with stuff, and that's kind of the vibe I got here. So I wondered in this kind of thing too, it's like I wondered if that was part of the influence there. So I'll have to ask Kevin.
I definitely have like I don't know what you call this, a page bias. Like if I'm picking up a book that I've never seen before, if I open this book and this has 4 panels on every page, I'm not even gonna spend that much time with it, honestly. Like,
really?
It's got to be like really interesting for me. I think just because I feel so connected to people who like really need to fill up space and really jam stuff in there. There's something to me about like when I'm holding an object, I want to feel like there's a lot of meat on the bone there, or that there's thing I could come back to, or that I'm going to read it and then I'm going to come back to it and see something new.
And you're saying this has that?
Yes, completely.
Yeah.
So
okay,
when I pick up, when
I was confused for a second.
when I pick up something that doesn't look like this,
got it.
A lot of times I'm like, I don't know, I could read it, but am I going to be coming back to it? It's not a money value thing. That's a bad way to put it, but it's more like I like picking up a comic that feels like it's like stuffed.
I get it. Yeah, I totally get it.
And these definitely feel that.
These feel great. I mean, when I was looking through this, I was like, I love the use of halftone. I love the use of the 2 color.
Yeah. Like, do you find yourself, because do you do halftones with an iPad?
No. I do the iPad. I do the halftone in Photoshop.
Oh, Photoshop. Okay.
On the PC.
I'm always trying to like zero in on whether they do it digitally or with Zipatone or anything.
Yeah, but what are you going to do with Zipatone? You can't even get Zipatone.
I'm not talking shit. I'm always curious. I'm always a little distracted by like, ooh, I'm looking close to see like, is there an edge on the dots?
Yeah, totally.
Or did they fade out?
Yeah, exactly right. Did they cut the dots? How did they? Yeah. I see what you're saying.
I don't have a preference. I just think it's like a fun little.
I think I would maybe use Zipatone if it existed, but because it doesn't, I just do it on the computer.
Yeah, and at Blick, like a million years ago, when I first, maybe 2008 or 9, they had one rack of Zipatone, and I had no idea that it had gone out of business. This was just like what they had left over. So I spent probably $30 on a few of them, and I fucked around with them on my sketchbook, and they were really fun. And then it just vanished. I went back like 2 weeks later, and they were like, "No, that's all gone," and they're never making any more again.
I was explaining it to one of my students. I was like, "Well, this is a halftone." I'm like, it's using black and white next to each other to create a third tone. I'm like, black is tone, white is the absence of tone. This is a half tone.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, I saw their brain light up like, whoa. And I go, it's a third tone. Like, you get a new one.
Totally. And there is still something about dots that looks better than pure gray. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't want to do the halftone. It's like corny. But then when I go into the computer, I go into Photoshop or something or Procreate, if it's just flat gray, it just for some reason feels wrong or feels flat or something.
I mean, I agree, and I think it's because of the phenomenon, right? It's like the dots, it looks like it's moving.
Vibrating,
it's like it's got energy.
It's dynamic,
like exactly. It's like it's static, but it's like moraying or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, so what's interesting is I was up at the Indie Creators Con and I went up to Ken Landgraf's table, an old head, right? Used to ink Marvel comics and stuff. He had Xerox copied tone, like halftone sheets. He Xerox copied and cut them out and pasted them down on his drawings. Like it was like old and new tech at the same time. He's like, well, I can't get Zipatone, so I'll just Xerox it off and then cut and paste that in. And I was like, this guy, I love this guy.
At some point I'm gonna like be confident enough to try and put transparency through the Xerox machine because you could make it yourself.
Yeah, of course.
And then glue it down, really. I'm just so nervous to put any other weird paper stocks in there.
So show me one of the ones you picked up there.
Yeah. So, well, speaking of dense books, this person I'd never met before, Chris Chua.
Yeah, I'm Chua. Okay.
The ring is like really hitting that glass.
It's very glossy.
But yeah, showed up, super nice guy, hung out at the table, talked for a little while, and just handed me this book, which I traded him for a few of my books. And I mean, talk about a book that's like stuffed. I've only spent maybe a little bit of time looking through this, but like this thing is many meals of comics in this book. Actually, this kind of looks like a menu a little bit. Which is
so much work went into this book.
But it is stuffed to the gills with detailed colors.
I met Chris the weekend before, and he was kind enough to gift me one of these as well.
It's wild. I'm actually really excited to look through this, and it has this like, I don't know, there's a quality of this like mixed media kind of like box of whatever materials I have on hand.
Chris is trying a lot of stuff in this book. There's a lot of different types of illustration. a lot of different types of drawing.
Yeah, but it's also doesn't feel like amateur-y, you know? Like it feels really confident. It feels like he's got this giant box of like random supplies he found on the street or something. You know, it feels like random but confident at the same time.
It's definitely,
which is cool.
It's also competent. Like he knows what he's doing. He knows how to draw. And there's a lot of body horror stuff in this. I realize like there's a lot of mutilization and like a lot of intense stuff.
Doo-doo.
And he's trying stuff out, which I really like. There's like all kinds of there's like fumetti. There's all kinds of like he does like a 3D kind of rendering that's very strange, like computer 3D, like old school computer 3D.
Look at this. Like,
he's all over the place.
This like wild abstract Spider-Man is super cool.
So he did a portrait of me, a caricature, and it's abstract. He used the letters of my name to draw my face.
Wow, that's sick.
I'll put it up in the video.
Do you know where he's located?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I'll look it up. Put it on the thing.
I mean, I know he was on the East Coast this week, or at least for a couple of weeks, because I met him in Connecticut, and I saw him again at MoCCA.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that like you go to shows for, because I've never come across Chris's work before, and for this to just like show up out of nowhere feels like, you know, it's just like serendipitous. You know, this is why you go to shows, like meet new people, experience new things. Also, there's like so much shit going on this cover, like. Sometimes at shows when I walk past a table that has stuff like this, I'm just like, oh, it's too much. I don't even know.
You get visual overload. Like it's like you need a palette cleanser. So when you see millions of people's book covers, it like it all starts to blend together.
Right. So it's helpful. I'm really grateful that he came over to the table and said like, hey, check this out. So you know, if you're someone who makes books, like don't be afraid to walk up to people and say like, hey, do you want to check out my book? Like, what's the worst that could happen? They just say no. Well, these caricatures in the back are cool. I didn't even see these.
Yeah.
Wow.
So. I was talking to Chris about some of the caricaturists that I follow on Instagram, like Ninja Sketch, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that's my friend." And they do these like extreme caricatures.
Is there a caricature like community?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
And Chris is one of them.
That's great.
This is
I'm jealous you have one of these. I want one. Chris, if you're listening, hit me up. I want a caricature.
Maybe we could have Chris do a graphic for the show.
That'd be awesome.
The caricatures of both of us.
I'd love that.
Yeah, that'd be rad.
But anyway, this book rules. I'm not going to talk about it too much because I haven't read much of it yet. But every time I pick a page, I mean, like, it's dazzling. It's wild stuff. There's Chris.
Yeah.
And also, like, just super friendly guy. Like,
very.
He
sweet.
wasn't looking for a handout. He wasn't looking for anything. He was just like, hey, check out my stuff. Just come. We talked about movies for a little while. Like. Just anyway, Chris, thank you. Thanks for coming by the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excited to dig into this more.
So, one of the people that I always love to see at a show, and I saw at MoCCA, was Paul Kirchner. Now, you might recognize Paul's work from The Bus.
I've actually only seen The Bus.
Yeah, so The Bus was in heavy metal. It ran in the heavy metals, and it was the kind of surrealist strip about this character who's always waiting for the bus, and something unusual happens in each one. So, The Bus is great because surrealism is on the menu. In every strip, it just has a very surrealist ending, right? And I think what's so wonderful about that, what I like about this is that I already knew this, but I didn't know from whence it came, right? I knew this work from heavy metal, and I saw it there, but I couldn't contextualize what it was. So at one of my earliest shows, TCAF, where I met you, I was tabling with Paul.
Oh, that's right. He was right next to you.
We shared a table together. And it was one of my first big shows, and I'm between Paul Kirchner, legend, and the Fantagraphics table.
Right.
So, wow, did I feel like I had been just thrown into the thick of it.
This one is great. Like, just like one of those things where it makes you look 2 or 3 times at it to figure out what the fuck is going on.
Absolutely.
This shower panel is like, it almost looks like an optical illusion. Like,
and Paul's line is so tight. And he's so talented, like he's so good at drawing this thing that he draws,
Yeah, and this is another version of tone. Obviously, is the cross hatching,
right?
Which is another way to get that gray tone in there. Which I think the last book I did, I was really happy with the blacks, and now I'm thinking about it again. Like I kind of regret not having a third tone in there, or having tone in there.
So this is wonderful. And then I also picked up this book from Paul called Hieronymus and Bosch, and as the title. As you could imagine from the title, essentially these characters, Hieronymus and Bosch, I think I have them correct, end up together in hell. And it's just, and there's the proof that what I was saying is true. He gave me a nice little drawing in there.
I'm sure people were like, this guy's full of shit. No way was he tabling next to
So this character dies unceremoniously. because he steals this duck, and then he ends up in hell with the duck. He dies, and there he
slips
is.
off a roof or something.
Yeah, he just like gets into a traffic accident or something. Like it's just like there he goes down the hill into the wall.
Yeah,
and just bites it. And as he hits the wall, that's actually really formative. Like,
oh yeah,
formal,
that's cool.
That's formal. Like he hits the wall, dies, and goes through the wall into hell.
Really nice colors on this.
Yeah,
too.
beautiful.
The color switch into death is really stark.
And so our characters now are deep in it, and
that's all silent, right?
This is wonderful. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally silent.
Total silence.
Totally wordless sequence.
I think most of this is wordless, actually.
Cool.
Yeah, from the there's the occasional, and Paul gets all his books made by Tanibus Editions, which is a French company. Mm-hmm. So they had a table at MoCCA this year. Yeah, except for sound effects, I think this is all wordless.
Cool.
And this is wonderful, just like gag strips, in the Sunday style of all these adventures in hell. Like,
was this also in something else, or is this just for this book?
I think this is just for this book, but I might be wrong.
Wait, was that he smashes all the gravel and then what happens here? He makes more? Oh no, he taps the sculpture.
Carves the sculpture,
the sculpture into gravel again.
And turns it into gravel. There's a lot of the like gag strip, like he goes to get a cigar and then he gets a light and it roasts his head and then it like stubs him out. So there's a lot of great Looney Tune-esque like gag strips in here.
Yeah.
This is just a fantastic book. It's so fun. Anyway, I love this Hieronymus and Bosch, and I love the lettering here. Mm-hmm. The title lettering, really cool. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I like seeing new work from people who have been in the game for a really long time. Like there's so many people drop in and out of this world in the same way that it's really hard to have a career as a professional athlete for a long time. Like it's really hard to have a career as a cartoonist for a long time. I don't know if he's like fully supporting himself on this or if he's teaching or doing something else, but like to see, I have heavy metal magazines that have this work in it from 50 years ago, 40 years ago. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
So it's neat to see the newer. When was this book published? Is this new?
It is newer. Yeah, it is newer. And he's still putting out work. Like
that's great. It's like such a labor.
Yeah, let's see when this what the copyright date is on this.
2018.
2018.
So he's been doing this for decades and decades and decades.
And he is a very sweet man. Like, you meet a lot of people. They always say, like, don't meet people that you admire. But in this case, I encourage you to meet Paul. He's a very, very kind person. And we tabled together, had a great experience. And I've seen him at a bunch of shows since. And every time it's like, I'm met with a smile, and a firm handshake.
Cool.
Paul's great. He's a sweetheart.
Nice. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, he was kind enough actually to ship my books back he drove to Toronto, and he was kind enough to take my books back in his car.
Wow,
like,
cool.
I didn't have enough space for
to New York. Does he live in New York?
Well, no, he shipped them. He's in Connecticut.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, tell me about Venom Myths.
Yeah, so I again just picked these up last week and haven't spent too much time with them, but we were tabling next to this gentleman Joshua. What is his last name?
Is it Ray Stevens? Joshua Ray Stevens?
Where's his name on this thing?
You got to put your name on your books.
Oh, here it is. No?
Yeah, Joshua Ray Stevens.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, I got it right. I got a name right for the first time.
Nailed it.
Like out of my memory bank.
It's actually Steffens. So there's a bunch of these. I think he said there's like 9 of these issues, and these were the only ones he had left. But like full reso book, great colors, amazing typography.
I love the
gradient on these covers, and some of them were different versions of the same color. Like this is the green and yellow or goldenrod or something. He also had a blue and pink color. But really friendly fella. And these books are awesome. Like I was really kind of like, sometimes you table next to people and like their work seems like you're glad they're doing it and you're happy for them, but you're also like, I don't really want to trade for that stuff. I kept looking over this stuff like, man, I really want to get some of that shit. So we
it's good when you feel a connection
books.
to people's work. Yeah, for sure. I mean, this looks great.
It's really nice and just like really nicely printed and
you
great.
Can see somebody loves to draw.
Yeah, great illustration. It has that kind of like sketchbooky quality too, where some of the pages are sort of assembled together, and then some of them are more straightforward. This whole big full page sequence is really cool, and also just like really audacious, and sets a tone for the whole thing. Just talking about pacing or something like that, like. A lot of times people will just build up to like a big splash page or something, but I think to open an issue with this kind of like sequence of full pages is really cool.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is audacious. I think it
tone
takes a lot
also.
of guts to do a bunch of like 10 splash pages in a row.
Yeah, and like this kind of gradient tone on the Riso looks amazing. This would not be as good because you still get texture in the
Right,
black
right,
and stuff.
yes,
this
you're
this
right.
would not be as cool.
I see what you mean.
On a flat, Xerox printer. Or
Right.
laser
Also,
printer or
you
something like that.
like Riso, you can feel it.
Yeah, it's soft. The
Yeah.
paper stock is really nice. Like just a really nice object and just good, fantastic cartooning. Like I love the characters are really neat. The typography was really what drew me to it. I don't really like graphic design, or it's not like really my thing. But when I see kind of really interesting handwritten stuff that feels intentional, handwritten text for different reasons, that becomes like a really stylized part of the drawing.
And this is what we were talking about this in a previous issue, but using the risograph, using all the colors to make, well, quote unquote, the ugly colors, right?
Yeah.
You can see these blushes of tone, which are really beautiful. Like,
Yeah, really
there's
nice.
like blue and purple come through, and like weird mauve, and like, different shades of brown. We're getting all kinds of greens and stuff. And it reminds me, like, when you look at the palm of your hand, how you can
Yeah.
see like a ton of different colors, like the blush comes through. And it really does read really well in the risograph. And what a skillful use of color. I mean, we were talking about this when we talked about some of the other Riso books.
Yeah, totally. And it's not that kind of thing is not intuitive. Like that's a choice. It might be kind of a happy accident from some other kind of experiment, but
Sure.
no one says like, yeah, fill it with the cool like skin colors or whatever, and overlap them a certain way. This is an intentional placement.
Yeah, and
of this
whoever's
kind of stuff.
printing whoever's setting up your files for the Riso machine has to be like a total G, like Alex Alexandi.
Right. I mean, it might be him. I don't know. Maybe
He might have
maybe
been.
does
Yeah,
it
he
himself.
might have printed these.
We actually didn't talk about printing.
We
at
didn't
all.
talk about who printed them, but look at that. I mean,
this
look
show's
at the
awesome.
greens and yellows and blues. It's all like coming through this mid-tone, which I really love.
You can actually see too where like one of them ends a
Yeah,
little
the
bit.
registration.
Like, but I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. And like maybe that was supposed to be trimmed.
Yeah, and each issue is going to be different. Like this book that I have is different from this version of this book someone else has, which is it makes the reading experience kind of special and different. That's true of any book, but the books I print on the Xerox machine are all different because they might be trimmed slightly differently or something, but the guts of them look exactly the same. Anyway, this stuff is awesome. Again, I haven't dug into it too much. Great cartooning, great drawing.
Yeah,
and,
Josh was telling me a little bit about his themes, and there's definitely a lot of lore involved. So
Yeah, and he also was saying sometimes that he'll jot down an idea or something in a sketchbook, and then kind of piece it together later, and then add on to it. So some of these pages are like collections of different ideas that then kind of fit together, and then are then, I guess, exacerbated or just like expanded upon in the making of the book. Which is really cool.
It's cool to see people work out their ideas and how they do it. Like, and he's adding some of those ideas, like you were saying, they almost look like commercials, right? Like, I mean, I guess that's what this is, but it's cool to see like an idea as an ad, get it into the lore of the world, through like a one-off advertisement, like a fake advertisement that you're making on your own. That's awesome.
That also doesn't just feel like the same old fake advertisement that everybody does.
Right,
Which is
right,
like the
right, right.
X-ray specs and all that shit. Like,
Yeah.
it's enough of that.
Let's see here. We each got one of these, but we wouldn't talk about this for a second.
Yeah.
Looks like Juliet Collette had a senior thesis, and if you saw on their Instagram, we can kind of post that. We'll post it in there for you. But basically had this quarter-fold newsprint comic and filled a desk with it, and just like it had this wonderful installation. The desk was all tagged up with different.
Did you go? I didn't go.
No, I couldn't. I don't think I had access to that show.
Oh, Kevin went.
He did?
Yeah, that's where he got these.
Yeah, okay. So these were brought to us by Professor Wormington himself.
Kevin Fong.
Kevin Fong.
Shout out to
shout out to
the man,
Kevin.
the myth.
While we were tabling, he's like, "Hey, I got you one of these."
Yeah.
So this technically
He got us each
qualifies.
one of these.
Yeah, we each have one. And first of all, Juliet, what a G to like be like, this is my piece, and to put it all together in the way that it was presented looked amazing. And then of course the comic is great. Which we've come to expect from them. And they were actually tabling outside of MoCCA.
Yeah, I love the gorilla outside show. That's
Definitely.
such a beast move.
Very cool.
Especially like Austin, who was invited to do a panel, is also at the gorilla show outside.
Yeah.
The rules.
Which I love that spirit. So our boy Pangea Proxima was out there too. And so we have to all do a show together. I think we should all go out to like Washington Square Park and just set up tables.
Yeah, they do that already. I mean, we're not trying to horn in on their thing. They already set up tables outside, and they'll just post on Instagram like, hey, we're hanging out here selling comics that come through.
Well, next time let us know, so we'll come post up with you, because the more the merrier, right? Like solidarity in numbers.
If you want. I mean, I'm not trying to horn in on their thing.
Yeah, fair. I'm not I didn't mean to invite myself. But I was just saying, like,
We'll bring snacks. We'll bring snacks.
I'll get your back.
Yeah. We'll make it worth everybody's while.
With chill vibes.
I picked this up from Cram, which this has been getting a lot of press. I don't know. Is it press? Is it press? I don't know what to call it.
Pick up?
Buzz?
Pick up.
Sure. This one I have read. This was the first thing I read that I picked up at the show and really enjoyed it. It's Autobio, Rezo printed.
Looks great.
Really, really, obviously nicely made, because everything Cram makes is really nice.
It is.
And just a really, we talked about Autobio before and the things that we like and dislike, and this is the version that I like. It's like a cool, interesting, funny person talking about, insights about their life and recording certain things, and it's revealing, and it's like kind of embarrassing, but it's you see growth from the start of this book to the end. And that's one thing I was thinking about, is like, this was on Instagram. I think almost all of this was on Instagram in bits and pieces. And when you're reading Autobio on Instagram day by day, you never get like the closure of like a chunk, right? So it's like you might get a sensation that things are changing and growing over time. But there's something really nice about this, putting it in a book form, is you can say like, okay, these are things she was talking about at the beginning. It actually does bounce around in time a little bit. And then by the end, you can see like not only artistic growth, but also just kind of like following up on some of those ideas, or you get the sense that time has passed in this person's life and they've changed in some way. Growth is probably the wrong word, but change is interesting.
I like that they include the dates. It does make it feel more like a diary, which is, even if they're non-linear, like if they jump around in time, that's fine. But the date kind of, I feel like it helps to demarcate, but it also is like inviting me in a private way, where I get to follow along with your life and kind of take stock of how much time is passing, and it helps include me as a viewer, as like having a relationship to this work.
Totally. And you can see too, like, this is 2020, this is 2022, and you can see like the jump in style.
I like that.
It's really cool. And some of these are pen, some of them are like, I'm assuming pencil of some sort, and there's some exploration for materials. Once they land on this kind of style, that's like kind of what I'm the most interested in visually, is this like really jam-packed, like scratchy, super conversational kind of thing. This one's really funny, where she goes on a date with someone and they end up watching the movie Seven, and that just cuts from them watching Seven to like fucking.
What's interesting too is like, I saw them do a reading of this at Pictou Beach last year, and I mean, I was like, they had me in stitches. Like, I really thought it was funny. They were telling a story about when they were riding their bike and they got hit on their bike and then had to go to work anyway, and like solving that problem on the fly of getting hit and bleeding and being like, I'm okay, and then like, no, please don't call an ambulance, it'll cost me $3,000, that kind of thing. Like, very down to earth.
It has
realism there.
There's a couple of sort of, I don't want to call them recurring gags, but there's a few scenes in here too where like, that are really funny, where it's going through some sort of serious situation while either there's something on their phone that's going on in their mind, or there's just like something that just happened is on their mind. And you don't see a lot of that in comics, but it's one thing you can really only do in comics, where you can show somebody talking and thinking something at the same time, which you can't do concurrently in film, really, I guess, or whatever. But like, you can see them engaging in the conversation, the situation where they are, but their brain is somewhere else, which I've done. I do that literally every day, where someone's talking to me and I'm partly listening to what they're saying, but I'm also like, do I have to pick something up on the way home?
Right.
Like,
did I leave the stove on? Did I lock the door?
Am I gonna draw that issue of the talking thing, or
I gotta do my taxes, my laundry?
So
like, who's borrowing which book?
I really appreciated that part of this book, where it's that thing you find in art that you really like, which is like, you feel. They say people feel you feel less alone, I guess.
Right.
I don't feel alone in general, but like, you feel connected in this other way.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. You do feel connected. You feel
less like this thing only happens to you, and you feel like other people are going through the same thing.
And I think oftentimes when I'm making work, that's the kind of truth that I'm hoping to get to. Like, I'm hoping to be able to tell the truth in a way where there's no pretense, where people can relate to the humanity of it. Like, I don't go in there thinking that. I'm just saying, like, when I'm working, I my goal is to get to a place where I'm being honest in a way that I'm not putting on any airs.
Sure.
Like that you can live my life just the same way you live yours. Like you could walk right on.
And if there's some overlap, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
This I thought was really cool. There's a scene where they're talking with another, I guess, I don't know who the other person is, but they're both nude. Presumably in some like sexual situation or dating situation, but there's no meal made out of like the gender of who's involved in it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this to be like pervy or anything. I think there's a lot of talk about dating in here, and there's no talk about like being gay or bisexual or pansexual or anything like that. It's just so like commonplace. It's just a thing that's happening. And I think there's a lot of autobio stuff, especially that's like, this is my book about being this, or this is my book about being this, and but this doesn't make a meal out of that. This is just part of their kind of like everyday life. It's like, I date this type of person and I date this person and I'm just doing all these different things, and it's not defining me. These are just things that I do.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, that's a good observation. I really like the idea that it makes commonplace what other people might view in a way that is I don't know, unskillful or separated. Like it had in that way, it's some kind of European. Like as Americans, we're prude, right? Like the American mentality, because of the Puritans, very prude, right? Guns and blowing people's heads off is cool, but your own body is not cool.
Right.
You should not be comfortable naked, but you should totally be comfortable watching a television show where people are shooting machine guns at each other. Right. It's like it's totally inane. Like it doesn't make any sense at all.
Completely. And there's this just lovely scene between these two people having this conversation, presumably after some sort of sexual encounter, but maybe they're just hanging out without clothes on. Like, I don't know.
It could be hot. There's an air conditioner. It could just be like the dog days of summer, and they're roommates, and they're just hanging out, and it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like,
which another cool thing you can do in comics is the visual is telling you one thing, but it's not being talked about. Like they're not directly addressing what they're going on. They're not about to have sex. They didn't just have sex. It's not obvious.
Exactly.
They're just two people having a conversation, but while reading it, you're like, oh, they chose to draw it this way. They're making a choice here. And we're getting information from it, but they're not telling us something. They're not beating us over the head with it.
Fair. And what the audience doesn't know is that Mike and I are both nude right now, and it's fine. We're having a conversation.
No one's gonna know.
We're just talking, and you're none the wiser.
Yep.
It's none of your business.
Wearing only my ring. Anyway, I thought this book was great. This is the first thing I read. I was excited to pick this up. Get it from Cram. Everything they make is wonderfully assembled and just great stuff.
C-roll. So Allie's hilarious too. Their tone is fantastic. Like I like the way they storytell. It's very funny.
I've never met them in person, but there's a writing style here that is distinct.
I went to that show and we talked a little bit about it when we. Oh, apologies by the way. To our boy Father Puka Shells, we with the mix-up last time. Also, can we talk about Drone Sky for a minute?
Yeah.
I meant to do this one at the top of the video, but like always, I get excited and we jump right in and we start talking.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you to Drone Sky, your homie,
my dude. I've known him for a long time,
and we wouldn't have the show in the way that it is without him. So thank you so much for your contributions.
The title song and also some of the other stuff that we put on bits on Instagram and stuff like that.
So good. I remember when we were looking for music, and we were throwing music stuff back and forth, and I was just like, none of this is doing what I want it to do, which is like be magical and rooted in the real world, but still like ethereal and like classic and modern at the same time. Yeah. Like, so good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's the perfect vibe, I think, without even having to go back and forth. It was just like, I got all this stuff, and we're like, wow, this is great. It. These are great. This one's great. This one's perfect.
So we had a chance to, let's talk about Nate. We had a chance to get to know Nate Doyle.
I think is that Nate?
I think, like for sure. This is like a self-portrait, and I think that this too, and they come across in some of the books, but we have a nice little run here.
Yeah, so Nate's stuff is totally new to me. I'd seen his work around the internet and stuff and always thought it looked cool, and this is the first opportunity I've had to pick up any of the books. It's really rad looking stuff.
I had bumped into Nate doing a show at the Pit. They did a show where they tabled with Austin.
Oh, cool.
And it was like one of my early interactions with them. It's very small, but very cool. John Mejias Vasquez put it together,
Cool.
and I just got to meet so many of the people that we still admire, and we hadn't talked about Nate's work at all. And look at how much of it we have. I mean, what a kind soul. So we got to meet them and catch up with them at MoCCA, and they hooked us up with Crooked Teeth. Now, Crooked Teeth is a kind of an ongoing work, right? They talk
I think
about,
you said some of them are self-contained, but some of them are ongoing. It's
Yeah.
kind of like Island, I guess.
yeah, there's some ongoing story. There's some stuff like the Blood and Thunder is one of the ongoing tales.
Okay. This should, I mean, talk about like cool typography. Like that page is awesome.
Amazing, yeah, and it's right. It looks like right out of a sketchbook, right?
Yeah.
Which we love here.
Maybe it is.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
so, right here, I mean, even here, he's talking about the 7th issue, and it's been a decade since the first one. So 2007 is when he started making Crooked
Wow.
Teeth.
Respect.
I mean, absolute respect. And when I saw the work for the first time, I was like, we got to get this on the channel. I love this mark making. Like,
Yeah, really brushy.
yeah, like good command of the brush, a lot of that frenetic energy, he comes out of the punk scene. He's also into kung fu, so don't mess with him. But no, I mean, you see that the reason why I mentioned that is because all the energy and the flow is like very, very cool. I love these. I mean, I love these lines. Very sweet. And part of what kicked it off too was this title. I remember I saw Dungeon Mage, and I'm like a huge head.
You're
for,
like sold.
Yeah, I'm like, you got me. You had me with Dungeon.
You judged this book by its cover.
You had me with Dungeon. I mean, come on, dude.
That
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I just if you put the words dungeon and or some sort of spellcaster in your title, you got me. I'm there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great textures on all this stuff too.
And you can see how, I mean, they mentioned it a little in the Crooked Teeth. It's like, and I'm feeling the same kind of exhaustion from Island. It's like when you do a book for so long, you're like ready to do something different,
But look how different all these covers are too, though.
I
Like,
love these covers. Love these colors.
they're great. It's like it's same format, I guess, for like different titles, different colors.
You see
large
the-
image, smaller images, embedded images, textures.
You
really
see the
cool.
restlessness, right?
Yeah.
You see the
Totally.
the energy and the
That's a good way to
restlessness.
put it. Wow, this is cool. You get the cover and then you get the sketch for the cover.
Yeah, hell yeah, that
Sick.
looks awesome.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. Actually, that's awesome.
I mean, this rules. Blood and Thunder, let's go. I'm into it. It's like what I've gathered from this, reading it since last weekend. It's an ongoing. Some of it's ongoing. Some of it's self-contained, like we said earlier.
Nice. A lot of motion in this panel.
Oh yeah, really cool. And it's really hard to make cars look like they're moving.
It really is. The blurred background is kind of, I think, the only way to do
helps,
it. But to
for
give,
sure.
I love the blur on the ground too. It's
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah. I did this in a panel
Like
recently.
fat chunky brush texture.
Nice,
and then a
yeah,
sweet
nice dry
sour
brush.
strokes.
Yeah,
that's cool.
totally. Nice dry brush.
Nice dry brush, Nate.
Hey Nate, good job. I want to say good job to everyone in the most heartfelt way possible. I also don't want it
It's
to be like,
impossible for it not to sound condescending.
yeah, I don't want it to sound condescending at all.
Good job.
But I'm like, hey, good job. It's hard work making comics, and it seems like oftentimes when we're making comics, you're alone. So it does feel like you're shouting into the void sometimes.
You're alone, or you're ignoring
that.
someone that you're that close to.
Yeah, or right. You're ignoring your partner.
Yeah,
I love a good Gronk.
that's a great Gronk.
This rules.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into Crooked Teeth. That was, and also another just like really friendly person to talk to. Like stop by the table, had
Yeah.
books in the backpack. Oh, there's a dragon back there too. Cool.
Hell yeah.
Books in the backpack, just like talking about stuff. Really friendly person. It's just great. I mean, tabling
is
at these
fun as
shows
hell.
is really cool. You can have a DM conversation on Instagram, and it's just not the same. Like someone comes by and stands by the table for 10 minutes, and you talk about whatever. It's great stuff. Wow, look at that.
Did you tell the audience about how Gary Groth took our picture?
The audience. I did
We
not.
got our portraits taken by Gary Groth.
I didn't know it was Gary Groth.
Yeah, you didn't know at the
Which
time.
was double funny afterward.
This rules. Look at like a lich. The Lich King.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Anyway, this rules, Nate.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thanks for dropping some teeth on us.
Yeah. I picked these up, which I was really excited about, from Elizabeth Bethia.
Oh yeah. Oh, good. We got some Bethia work in that.
Yeah. So we when we did our New York cartoonist show early on, I guess that was episode 1.
Episode 1, yeah.
Their work was featured prominently in that show, but I didn't have any of it at the time, and it was really the first time this is a wreck your cred thing. Like that show as a Society of Illustrators was the first time I'd ever seen any of Elizabeth's work before, and I was like, what is this? And my wife is like, and she likes this stuff, but she's not like a head about comics, and was like really drawn to these on the wall. There was one description of like, I don't know, maybe it's in one of these books, but it was talking about like a decorative soap dish. And my wife Christina, she was just like, there's something so palpable about describing a dusty bar of soap. Like a dusty bar of soap, because soap is never dusty. Like you use it and it goes away. Like soap just vanishes. But to have these little soaps that are like shells, and these colored shells that are sitting in a dish, and they've been sitting in a dish forever. Like maybe there's a pump soap next to it because you're not supposed to use the decorative soap.
That's
and
my
having
grandma.
it be covered in dust, right? Like
Totally.
This is a really visceral thing, but to zero in on that. And anyway, I've read part of this one. I haven't read these ones yet, but I am like so fucking into these books.
Oh, that's great to
hardcore.
hear.
Like they're so beautifully observed. Like I feel like I'm not articulate enough to describe why I love these so much.
I see.
But
A great author.
a great author, like a great writer. It's funny, it's beautiful, it's sad, it's heartwarming, it's heartbreaking. Some of these start off as one thing, and then as the story goes on, it becomes about something else. And at the end, they kind of wrap it up with like, well, I don't know if those things connect, but that's kind of, it has this sort of like intentional stream of consciousness quality that I really like.
That's cool.
And just really funny and really beautiful. Like this feels like a human being who's like communicating the way they observe the world to other people.
I like that, yeah.
It's not so much like I need to make something for this comic or I need to tell a story. It's more just like, here's how I see things kind of poured onto the page. And the drawings are really immediate and really scratchy. And just like some of these things, they don't seem like they're going to be funny, but then they're incredibly funny. Like the coffin factory in Bushwick closed. They made pine boxes for the prisoners and indigents in New York. The cheapest caskets are cardboard and will support 300 pounds, but if you get it wet, game over. Like,
yeah.
That's like, it's really, I don't know, something about that just like really strikes me as really funny.
I think about that often, like what makes a great writer. That's an age-old conversation, but part of it, I think, is presence, like being able to observe, like your skills of observation. And then the other part of it, I think, is, they say like, well, you have to have lived a life to be able to talk about life in a way that's meaningful. I would go one further. You have to get to a certain point in your life where you don't give a fuck anymore.
Sure.
What you're like, you're not self-conscious anymore. You're confident enough to just put the work onto the page, regardless of what form it takes and whether it's revealing or if it's ugly or if it's, it can be beautiful and, incriminating in the same breath. Like that to me is what makes a great writer.
Yeah, totally. And these are really raw. Like there's like sexual stuff in here. There's like violent stuff in here. I thought this was really funny. Great visual joke.
And also kind of terrifying, honestly.
Totally.
Like, what experience led to that? That association.
But without the caption, it's nothing. It's the perfect synergy between image and words, and that's what this whole book is. That it's perfect synergy between image and words.
Well, that's a great compliment. Yeah.
And it's another thing too. I think pushes the boundary of things like, if it's not in panels, is it comics? I guess I don't know. Right. I mean, it feels right. Nothing feels weird about it, but. And one of the other things I got that was cool from Elizabeth was this book of poetry.
Oh, sweet.
And this is not visual at all. These are this is the writing without the image. So I'm super excited to dig into this too, which I haven't had a chance to do yet. But I picked up everything they had. I was really excited about this. This book looks rad. And then I got something from Freibert on Toy Box Coffin Play Place, an older zine of theirs.
Oh, sick.
That is just really, really funny and really raw and really pervy, and
that's so cool.
Great. Anyway, got to talk to them briefly at the table. Really, really nice. Thanks for hooking me up with these books. And I love that. I love that stuff.
I think I have one more artist that I got books from, and that's Charles here. So this work that we're seeing here was included originally in Heavy Metal. And you can see the kind of like, again, this is like sci-fi fantasy. So we follow this this blue-skinned assassin.
This salt technique?
Oh, yeah. I haven't done it.
Do a watercolor and drop some salt in it, like crackles all the colors.
Yeah, it like crystallizes the pigment.
I do that with the kids, and it blows their mind.
So it follows this blue-skinned assassin, and it's just, fantasy. Fun fantasy.
Who's the artist here?
Charles. Goes by Giant Earth on Instagram.
Charles Featherolf, okay.
Yeah. He asked me, like, how'd you put out so many books? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, yeah, I got kids, man. So Giant Earth
there's
Press.
Your answer right there.
Yeah. But originally, and then this was this year at MoCCA, and this I got from them last year.
And these are like published this year? These are new books?
This one was out last year, and this one's out this year, yeah.
Okay, but that's old work?
Old work kind of republished in 2022 here. It appeared in Heavy Metal 301. But I had picked this up because I was watching Station 11 at the time, and if you've seen Station 11, the whole premise of Station 11 is that like someone finds a graphic novel post-apocalyptic and it's about an astronaut and then creates a religion like in the post-apocalyptic
we were just
world.
talking about this, about creating religion around comics.
Oh yeah. I mean, yes, but
For
I mean
tax
he uses he uses not in this book, but I'm saying in Station 11 the writer uses the comic as like his Bible, essentially preaching from it.
It's not a real comic. It's
not a real comic. It's made up for it.
Okay.
But then this reminded me of that, and great drawing. I mean,
I like these brushes.
dry brush. It's all dry brush. It's beautiful, and really, like really great.
Also wordless.
It seems like it. Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, wordless.
Yeah, this is sweet.
Charles is really talented, and that's why I wanted to kind of shine a light on their work, because I feel like, oftentimes in our world, we can't see all of it. We don't know it all. We can't see every book at the show. It's impossible.
Yeah, well, this is really nice.
So sweet.
The light.
Love all that black.
Really nice. The splatter.
So fun. Yeah, really nice.
Splatter, actually, this is really cool. I never thought about this, but white splatter in light is almost like a lens flare.
Totally,
it's like light hitting the camera lens.
Yeah, it really looks beautiful. I just ordered some white ink. I didn't know that it existed.
I have some, but they suck. They're not opaque enough. And then like gouache is too thick.
Yeah,
There's one that Daniel Warren Johnson swears by. It's like an acrylic. It's a white acrylic ink that I haven't been able to find here. I should just order some, I guess.
So yeah, I mean, I thought this work is really great talent.
Yeah. And just real quick, a couple of the things we got.
Oh, let's see that one to can't.
We shouted out Matt Rhoda on the gram earlier. I don't want to spend too much time on this other stuff, but this book rules. Get everything from Matt Rhoda. I got a new Angela Fanch.
Ooh, new Angela Fanch.
Someone handed me this book. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name. But
cool.
Really, another really friendly,
that's beautiful.
young fella, all game inspired stuff. That's really cool.
I do want to talk about this though.
Yeah. Put up that one to Can't. This is issue 2, which also I haven't read, but issue 1 is amazing. Published by Cold Cube Press in McKay, not from Fugazi, and Gavin Owens.
I heard about this when it came out.
Another spectacularally well printed book in, I believe, mint and orange.
That's beautiful.
But I have not looked at this yet, partly because this is a story I like really care about that I don't want to like spoil anything.
Well, right. So let's read it. Let's take time and we'll do a deep dive on it.
Yeah, but spectacular. You should buy.
I just wanted to shout out.
Buy both of these from Cold
We love
Cube.
Cold Cube.
Aiden is the dude.
This is beautiful.
It's just great.
It's really striking.
This book like launches itself into your eyeballs, especially
100%.
It
looks like an eyeball.
Yeah, that's true. No shade to like anybody or whatever, but you're walking through a self-published show and you come across something like this and you're just like, damn.
It is. You do need something that cuts through the din. Mm-hmm. It's like putting a preamp on a Les Paul. Yeah. You're walking through the show and you just get visual overload the same way you do when you're at a museum or any convention for anything. You just get visual overload. Even at the grocery store, you need a palette cleanser or something so bright and bold in its design that it cuts through all of it.
Look at that foil stamp.
Pretty cool.
Sick.
I want to foil stamp something.
But yeah, MoCCA was dope. MoCCA, lower your table costs and get rid of your admission fees, and I'll like you more. But I did have a great time.
I will say thank you for having us.
Yeah, also thank you for having us.
It was a wonderful show, and I got to see so many amazing people that I love and that are quickly becoming, a close comics community for me.
Yeah.
And I got to meet tons of new friends and talk to people who've been doing the stuff for a long time. So I'm happy to be right where I am. Thank you, MoCCA, for validating that in a way. I don't go around looking for the validation, but when it shows up in that way where it's like the show is a wild success and I'm having a great time, and even though I'm there for like 10 hours and I'm totally fried by the end of it, I feel amazing and I leave just like on cloud 9. Yeah.
Actually, I just found an old sketchbook from the first time I tabled at TCAF, which I think was 2015 or 16 or something like that. And I had a note that I wrote in there that I was really sad after I left that show. Not because it was a bad show, it was a great show, but I was like, I can feel how great this community is and I want to be in it so bad. And I just was not. Like, I ran into a couple people there that I had ran into at other show, but as soon as I walked out the door, it was just over. But at this show, it was the thing I feel like I've been like that feeling I've been wanting to have of like people sort of knew who we were, or they're at least interested in what we were doing, or they had seen the show or something like that. Is like,
it's begun.
It's begun. I feel like I've like started. We're starting to connect. The tissue is starting to connect.
Yeah, and for the record, that was our first show tabling together as comics people.
Yeah, it was great.
So that was really great. It's like
fun.
a milestone, and it does feel like, we do these videos because we love this medium so much, and you could see that reflected back in the people that came up to us.
Totally.
Yeah, it was really cool. Thank you so much, MoCCA, Society of Illustrators, for organizing, and everybody that was there, all the volunteers.
Oh, yeah, volunteers are really well organized.
All the volunteers, Kate Feartag, thank you so much for your hard work, and we'd love to see you again next year.
Yeah, really well organized, well run show. Bravo.
Toodles.
Toodles.